That's my gavel. All right, if everybody's settled in. Can you hear me, Brian? Good evening, everybody. I'll call the regular council meeting of Silicote to order at 5:30 p.m. Introduction of amendments to the agenda.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, just a slight typo on item 4.2. The first recommendation there talks about receiving the minutes from the Kenora District Services Board, but then the link underneath it talks about Kenora Home for the Aged. That's just a typo on the link. The actual attachment is correct.
Thank you. May I have a motion to confirm the agenda as amended, that minor amendment? Moved by Councillor Fenlon, seconded by Councillor Lego. All in favor? Carried. Declarations of pecuniary interest.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, I have one from Councillor Southall respecting the February 20th regular council meeting. He wasn't in attendance, but did wish to declare a conflict on item 7.1, which was zoning bylaw amendment number A05 2018. Councillor Southall is director of Rockshore Holdings, Inc.
Thank you. Motion to adopt the minutes of the following meetings: February 13th special council meeting, February 20th statutory public meeting, February 20th regular council meeting, February 28th special council meeting. That council adopts the minutes of those meetings. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Bath, seconded by Councillor Cassidy. All in favor? Carried. Motion to receive minutes from outside agencies and boards. That the minutes of the Kenora District Services Board meeting held on January 10th be received. The minutes of the Board of Management of the District Homes for the Aged, December 13th, 2018 minutes be received. And the Northwest Health Unit Board of Health minutes for January 18th be received. May I have a mover, please, to receive those? Councillor Lego, seconded by Councillor Fenlon. All in favor? Carried. Determination of items requiring separate discussion. So we have 17 items. Is that correct, Clerk?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, yes, that's correct.
So we'll go through them, starting with 7.1, Ontario Regulation 40302, Debt and Financial Obligation Limits Report.
Any of this have an effect on ratifying the budget, or these are just formalities and the passing of the budget doesn't matter?
You, Mayor Lawrence, the report states there if they were to do the financing for the items of capital, which are in the 2019 in the report. It won't affect it, but we just have to advise council on where we would do financing before we can pass the budget. We have to show you where we
Lifting, Councillor Southall?
I just wondered whether we had the cart before the horse, but if it doesn't matter, then it doesn't matter. That's fine.
7.2, Budget Adoption and Tax Rate Approval. Councillor Timpson. Cassidy. 7.3, Tax Ratios and Related Matters. Councillor Timpson. 7.4, Council Remuneration and Expenses for 2018. 7.5, Daycare Advisory Committee 2019 Work Plan. 7.6, Hudson and Area Advisory Committee Annual Work Plan and Budget Request.
That we're just accepting the report, we're not, okay.
7.7, 2018 Annual Summary Reports, Municipal Drinking Water System, Hudson and Sioux-Lookout. Councillor Fanlon, Councillor Bath. 7.8, Sioux-Lookout Water Treatment Plant Wastewater Recovery, Delco Filtration Unit. Councillor Bath, Councillor Timpson. Offer to purchase, 7.9. 7.10, land sale. Councillor Timpson. Offer to purchase, 7.11. 7.12, declare land surplus. 7.13, sports tourism strategy report. Councillor Timpson. 7.14, appointment of integrity commissioner and closed meeting investigator. Councillor Timpson. 7.15, amendments to Economic Development Commission and committee's terms of reference. 7.16, Northwestern Ontario Municipal Association call for nominations, Office of Executive Vice President. Councillor Timpson. 7.17, closed session for education and training. All right. So the following items will require separate discussion. I have 7.2, 7.3, 7.7,
6, 7.6.
no,
No.
no. 7.2, 7.3, 7.7, 7.8, 7.10, 7.13, 7.14, 7.16. That in agreement, clerk?
And I believe 7.17?
I didn't have it.
It wasn't lifted?
No, it wasn't lifted, no.
Oh, okay. My apologies.
Thank you.
Wow.
So, adoption of items not requiring separate discussion. The council approves the following recommendations. Item 7.1, 7.4, 7.5, 7.6, 7.9, 7.11, 7.12, 7.15, and 7.17. We have a mover, please. Councillor Southall, seconded by Councillor Fenelon. All in favor? Carried. Delegations, none. So now we'll go to consideration of items requiring separate discussion. Item 7.2. The council authorizes the passing of bylaw number 26-19, being a bylaw to adopt the estimates of all sums required for all municipal purposes during the year 2019 and to authorize the levy and collection of taxes for all municipal purposes in the municipality of Sioux-Lookout for the 29 fiscal year, and further the council adopt the 2019 budgetary levy increase of 1.63% to the residential property classes general tax rate. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Bath, seconded by Councillor Fenelon. Discussion, we'll start with Councillor Timpson.
Yes, When I supported the 1.7% increase, it was on the understanding that the tax rate would have been 2.75%. With, if you look at the levy plus the phase-in assessment, operating capital, that was my understanding, that the budget would come in at 2.75%. And then when I looked at the new budget, I noticed that the actual levy that's to be collected is $140,000 in what was said in February 2019. And I just don't know where I've misunderstood, but that my understanding was that that tax levy would be lower than the $11,002,298. Instead, it's $140,000 higher. So I wonder if somebody could clarify that for me, because certainly I cannot support this if it's gone up from what we talked about in February.
Can I ask the treasurer? Yep.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, the adjustments that were made to the draft number 3 to the final budget was we removed some overs that were in there that were already maxed. Employees are maxed, so we were able to decrease those. Removed 3 months of wages of some of the employees that we haven't filled the positions as of yet. Those will next year, though, in the budget come in for the full year wages. And we also got more, we got the actual cost on some of our long-term debt for example, the ladder truck. So there was, we were able to save a bit in there. There was also an increase on the payments for some of the internal transfers, so that in facilities, some of the work that was done, so that was an increase. Then we did some internal transfers. We also removed the guardrails from Public Works. There was also 6 months of wages were removed due to an employee being on a leave that we haven't had to use those wage costs. We transferred, we also had the KDSB, and we had to put in the library, the handy transit, the senior, Sulacau seniors donations. KDSB, their billing was received and the actual amount was an increase. Our capital projects, we had some of the capital projects that we had to put in that wasn't into the operating budget, that was in the capital but not in our operations budget. So after we did all that, we ended up that what we had to come up with to cut from our budget altogether was $90,413, and we did that by removing the positions that weren't filled. The OMERs we have a couple employees that are maxed at OMERs, we no longer have to contribute for them. The guardrails, and then to cover the balance of the deficit, we, after speaking with our Public Works manager, Andrew, he was in agreement that the Public Works fleet had more than enough to cover their fleet, so we took $13,900 from there. Then we removed the balance of the fleet into the fleet reserve for the roads. Now, in saying this, and now having, we received, after I completed the budget, we had received in February from OMPF advising us that there wouldn't be any change to our OMPF funding. On March 14th, we then received a notification of what our allocation for 2019 is. We now have a decrease of $37,600, which is down from our 2018 budget. So in order to balance our budget now, what I would like to do is take from the fleet reserve that we had previously talked to the Public Works manager, another $37,600, and then that'll balance it off, and we have to insert that extra amount into, because of the decrease in the OMP funding. Altogether, the increase in the actual tax rate for the residential, excuse me, the residential rate is a 1.63% increase.
Councillor Cassidy.
So when I look at the last budget that was presented to us, the revenue generated from the levies the difference from 2018 to this year was 360,000. This version of the budget shows that number at 497,000 now. So that works out to an increase of 4.6% from an increase in from MPAC assessments, is what I'm understanding here. The last budget was showing 3.6. So how are we generating more revenue here from the last version to this version?
By what I just went through with you is because we had to add the capital and everything that had to be added that you had wanted in the budget.
So that's not coming directly from like tax levy from the tax. It's coming from reserves then, or?
No, we decreased $90,413 from our operating budget from what we had presented to you in our draft 3 to our draft now is 90,000 less in our operating budget. We came in at a 1.63% tax increase, which is what my understanding of the resolution was for us to do that.
Yeah, my understanding, 1.7% is that, I think, which was put the capital into the budget and once that was added in to end up at 1.7%.
Correct.
I believe, Council, that was the direction we gave. Councillor Timpson.
Yes, I'm quite aware of that. I think, but it was predicated on the fact that it was going to be 2.7%, and this appeared that this was going to lower the taxes. But then you say we had an increase from KDSB, and we had less from UMP funding. So we made that decision last a month without having all the knowledge of what our income was going to be. So we made, at least I did, I made the decision on the wrong information. So.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, if I may speak, my understanding and the direction from the resolution, I'm not sure if the clerk has that available, that we were to include the capital items that were to be taxed. We were then to go back through and cut what we had to cut to make sure we were at a 1.74% tax increase. I'm not sure where you're getting the 2.7
Yeah.
from. I never heard that in the resolution, and I went through it a few times with the clerk to ensure that what we were doing was what you had wanted, and we came in with a 1.60%.
Great.
So I'm not sure where you want me to move forward with it. I never brought any of the MPAC information or anything that everybody's talking about with me, because my understanding was I was just to bring this back at a 1.7%. So I would have to go back and bring it back if you want more clarification on all the MPAC.
Councillor Southall.
Is there any way, I know this is after the gates close, but is there any way for future that we could have a breakdown of our impact assessments? How much is it for new builds? And how much is for increase in taxes on existing properties? Is that on your recaps or anything, or how much? I mean, is it a mammoth job, or could we have that for future?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, through OPTA, we can go and OPTA will allow us to say, okay, this is what your assessments are at the beginning of 2019 and before the phase-in, and this is how much you're making in the phase-in. MPAC gives the amount that MPAC gives you is with all the new builds and everything included, which isn't actually everybody's getting a 4% increase on their assessments. It actually includes all the new builds in there. I believe, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think, I don't know if Jody can recall, I think there was something like 12 or 14 new builds in 2018, which would drive up, because you figure an average home assessment is probably $250,000, $300,000.
That's what I was trying to get at. It would be nice to have that breakdown and figure and saying, okay, I mean, I think everybody would agree. If you've got 12 or 20 new properties in town, it's going to cost more to maintain and service those. But then how much extra money are we getting with our impact assessments for the municipality to spend in that year. That, I mean, that would be helpful for,
Yeah, and to you, Mayor Lawrence, we did an exercise of that, and I believe it was something like a 2.4% increase in the average
okay,
residential.
so being
Says-
about,
yeah.
close to the rate of inflation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Further discussion, council? Councillor Timpson?
Was there any more consideration of where there could be cuts? For example, I had asked about the planner. We're paying a planner $85,000 to come up from Toronto area to help us out. I mean, are things like that still necessary? I guess, has there been any, and not specifically that issue, but there were a list of things that we had talked about that could be cut that did not, at first glance to me, did not seem justified, and they haven't been justified yet. Will there be any more discussion on that?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, whatever direction you give us, if you give us the direction that you're going to table this and you want us to go back and cut more, then that's something that we're going to have to do as managers and review it. We all sat down at the table, all the managers went through, came up with some ideas of how to cut, what we could cut that made sense and seemed feasible. I'm just waiting for further direction.
Councillor Bath?
Yeah, I'm a little confused. We had a resolution that said we were satisfied with 1.7%. I mean, that's pretty clear. The treasurer's brought back to us, even with the reduction in OMF, she's brought back to us, they were only having a 1.63%. So I really wonder what the heck we're talking about. We're arguing about nothing. We got better than we asked for, and why do we want to question it and take it back? We're ahead of where we started. So I suggest we move ahead and pass this.
Councillor Southwell?
I'm not looking for an argument, but I'm going to say this is probably one of the most important decisions the council makes in an entire year. And if all of council are not comfortable with this, then I know at the last meeting we gave direction. I mean, I'm starting to hear, whatever. I'm just saying we should all be on the same page here. We're talking about probably the biggest thing that we do every year. So.
I'll take exception. I'll say we make many important decisions all year, and when we come, the budget is certainly an important decision on the overall direction of the community. But when we get down to arguing about small amounts in the budget, I think they disappear in surpluses and deficits. I think when you look at the marginal amounts we're talking about, I think we made a significant decision, and I think, as is always, sure, it's nice to have unanimity on council, but it's not necessary. And had we defeated it the last time, we would have been looking at draft 4 of the budget tonight. We are, in a sense, looking at draft 4 because of the revisions that were necessary. So
I just want to say, I did not support it at the last meeting, but I accept whatever majority of council decides. That's all I'm saying. Is if everybody's not comfortable, then we should move ahead. That's all I'm saying.
Councillor Nagel.
I think everyone's aware of where I stood at the last budget meeting. My mind has not been changed since that time. I'm at the point when I went over every budget that 3.7 is my number, and I will not be voting to ratify the current budget at another 1.63% today.
Councillor Fenlon.
I agree with Councillor Legel. I'm happy with the 1.7. We asked staff to go out, this would be the third, fourth time asking them to go back and make, and it's fruitless. We're just fighting something. We need 1.7 to sort of break even now and leave it at that. So
Sorry.
I'm for it.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're mixed message. We voted council gave staff direction at 1.7, they've come back at 1.63. Seems to me mission accomplished. One way to find out.
Yes, there is.
Yep.
We have a mover and a seconder, Mr. Clerk?
To you, Mayor Lawrence, yes, moved, pardon me, moved by Councillor Bath, seconded by Councillor Fenelon.
I'll call the vote. All in favor of budget adoption and rate approval? All in favor? Defeated. Now, council, what direction do you want to give to staff? Having given 1.7, I don't understand how, personally, I don't understand how council could vote 1.7 the last time. We had a majority, and now we don't.
I didn't.
No, I'm not, I understand.
I've always said, with 3.7% impact assessment, we can come in at 0%. That's been my take right from day one. So,
Well, we can't ask staff to come up with answers tonight because they were coming fully expecting to.
I'm not that, I'm just saying that was my position. I was actually willing to compromise to around 0.7% at the last meeting, including capital and donations and operations and everything. But I've always been, I think 3.7%, and it was good to get clarification that maybe we're only 2.5% with the new builds. But still, I mean, that's not bad. It's tough. Our taxes are the highest in northwestern Ontario, and people daily are complaining to me about the cost of their taxes and trying to live here. And we have to address that. We have to look at that. It's fine to just say, well, we'll just keep going. It's 2%, it's 1%, but realistically, it's hurting people. People are talking about moving away. I mean, so I'm not I don't want to get in an argument. I've never wavered from my position. That's all I'm saying.
I knocked on 1,400 doors during the election, and taxes came up at five doors. Taxes came up at 5 doors. I don't get daily calls or daily about moving away or high taxes. I freely admit our taxes are higher than regional municipalities, and there's the reasons can be enumerated. Among them are, even though our UMF now has been decreased by 34,000, more than some other regional communities, our UMF is actually lower per household than Dryden's by $100. There's many factors why our taxes are higher. And we do have high taxes. I think we work hard, and staff worked hard to get a good budget in. I think we provide good services. People are asking about services as much as taxes.
If I haven't deleted them, I would be happy to forward you, I'll go conservative and say at least 20 texts and emails in the last month.
I'm not disagreeing that you get...
concerns of taxes. So, I mean, you're saying that you only had 4. I'm telling you I've had, I'm sure, at least 20.
Councillor Southall, you're allowed to tell your story. I'm allowed to tell mine, and we can debate
I'm just
it.
saying, they're different.
Yep.
So there are concerns out there is what I'm saying.
I'm not sure where to go from here. I'm stunned at this turn of events. I think council's made a serious mistake here. We've defeated this item. Mr. Clerk and CAO, maybe I'll turn to CAO.
We did what council asked last meeting. We brought back the budget, so now we're looking for further direction.
Councillor Cassidy.
I support what Councillor Southall said, and I said it at one of the original budget meetings, is that we should be able to live within the $370,000 we're getting from increased impact assessments. And when I brought up the positions and I was shot down on them, I find that undemocratic, and I do not agree with it. But we're there to question what's getting approved in the budget that we are voting on. So we need to be able to ask those questions, and to add these positions. Maybe we can work in, maybe we phase them in over 3 years when we get increases. Can we find a way to work within that? And instead of getting the cart before the horse with regards to, we know we have development coming, we know we have, the town is gonna boom. Let's let the boom happen before we start asking for more.
Councillor Fenlon.
Nobody's coming up with any ideas. I'll say we have a money-losing arena. What can we do? Can we shut it down for the summer? It's the biggest money loser that we got. Shut it down, if that's what council wants.
Councillor Southall.
I say we better find out what council's direction is and give it back to staff and say, because I know we did this once already, but obviously not everybody was comfortable with that. So I guess we better go back to the drawing board and decide what we would like to come up, whether it's another meeting or whether we decide it right here, and then we give staff a new direction and go back and keep working at it till we have everybody, or at least a solid majority on board.
Councillor Lego.
So where were you? You said you were at 0.7? You would have added a 0.7?
No, I said, I can't even remember what it was. It was a compromise between staff cutting operational budget and reducing the amount we put into reserves. And I figured that it was roughly around a 0.07% increase in the tax rate, not levy, tax rate, which would be roughly 4.4 or whatever. But anyhow, that was kind of my compromise at the last meeting. I mean, I've always said 0%, and I think that we could live with 3.7. And I mean, I realize it's less than that. It's 2.5, but at least we're covering cost of living. I'm willing to flux on that a wee bit, but I think that's more realistic of where we have to come in. We are unsustainable as far as I can see, especially the rural and the lakeshore properties. They are just taking a beat. That's my piece.
Sorry, just to clarify, Councillor, you said, when you were talking just now, you said 0.07. Did you mean 0.7?
I was using it. I can't.
No, sorry. It's the decimal place. Was it 0.07 or 0.7?
0.07, like I'm talking maybe 70,000 or something like that.
I think that's 0.7.
Yeah, 0.7.
0.7.
So you're
okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
okay.
I'm going 0.7. Okay, yeah, okay,
Thank you.
yeah, okay.
Council? And if there's a motion to be made, please make the motion. We've just defeated 1.63% rate increase.
I made that motion at the last meeting and it was defeated. Can I make it again at this meeting?
Procedure, Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, because a final decision on the budget hasn't been made yet, the rules of reconsideration don't apply. So yes, Councillor Southall may make any motion he wishes.
Councillor Timpson?
Well, I'd like to suggest that there be another meeting in which the questions that the councillors who are not comfortable are addressed in open session. We all submitted fairly detailed questions. Some were addressed, some weren't. And I know people don't agree with line by line when it comes to operations, but if we're going to be making decisions in an informed manner, then maybe we have to go into more detail. And I would support another meeting to go into it in more detail and these questions be addressed, such as what Councillor Cassidy has said.
Treasurer?
Mayor Lawrence, I would just like to make a comment. The questions that all the councillors were questions on the variances. The direction I was given from that meeting at that time was if there was any variances that you wanted to know what the variances were, those were all answered.
So, Councillor
I
Southall?
realize this is a very difficult situation. It's uncomfortable and, I don't know. I would like to be able to give staff some direction at this meeting so we can get our budget in place. And I think to drag on more meeting, I know there's questions and maybe those can be addressed individual to individual with the CAO and the treasurer. I don't know. This is unprecedented, it's uncomfortable, but if everybody's not comfortable, then we should deal with that and maybe come up with some solution. I'm for trying to bash out something here, give staff direction, and let's try and get something in place. My opinion.
I agree. I think, Councillor Bath.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Southall. I don't want it to drag on to another meeting. We're 25% into our year now. Pretty soon we'll be 33%, and pretty soon why do we even have a budget? So we need to move ahead, and whether we move ahead in the direction I like, we already haven't done that. So we need to move ahead in the direction somebody else likes and supports. We do need to move ahead. We can't keep delaying this because all the dots and our T's aren't crossed and the I's dotted. We need to move ahead. So I support Councillor Southall on that for sure.
Is there consensus that we move ahead tonight? Can I see just so that, okay, so there's consensus, we'll move ahead tonight, not another meeting. So I think it's down to the same as the last meeting. It becomes a bit of an auction to get through it. And I, of course, I will support a 0.7 before I supported a 0, but I started at 1.7. So go ahead, Councillor Southall.
Can we just kind of go around the table? Does anybody have a very pressing question they have to have answered before we even discuss this? I mean,
Councillor Fenlon.
I have concerns about us moving ahead with development, with not having money enough to.
with what?
I have problems moving ahead with the municipality as we're looking at doing a lot of development and we don't have the cash to do it. Enough. You know, it takes money to build stuff. Not to build it, but to try and keep things moving along. Do we have enough money or would you take more out of reserves?
So what are you saying? We should cut the road to Hudson?
I don't care. Do what you gotta do.
No, I'm just being.
Well, it's not a joke.
No,
I can
it's
tell you.
not, and that needs to be done and should have been done before, but I don't know. I mean, we have not got the development. I mean, to sit and say we're gonna raise taxes at 2% because there might be development here,
Well,
get that.
it's not a might. It's going to happen. How can you say it's a might? You're on the Economic Development Committee. So, do we want development within the municipality or don't we? That's a simple answer.
What have we got in reserves? I think we are very, it's okay, it's because I know you're not prepared for this, but I mean, I think we've been very good. We're taking $100,000 a year from hydro, putting it into reserves. I think we had I'm just guessing, I don't know, but $500,000 this year we're putting into reserves. I mean, I think, but that's 6% of our tax base is going into reserves for future development. I don't think
Yeah, but it
that's
should
shabby.
look at the state of the underground you got. We haven't addressed that in 25 years. When are you going to address it? And what are you going to address it with?
Every community in
I'm
Ontario.
not talking about every community. I'm talking about us and what we got to do to move forward.
Well, talk about us. We have got the highest tax rate in all of northwestern Ontario right
And
now.
why? Why? Because you haven't kept up to it for 40 years.
Excuse me.
You're paying for it now.
We're way off topic here.
No, we're not. Nothing's for nothing.
Okay.
You know,
If you can't afford to live here, then development really doesn't matter.
Sure it does. It's going to increase your tax base.
Councillor
And then
Bath.
you got to wait for it.
It's increased too high now.
Councillor Bath.
Yeah, certainly when I look back at the taxes we've done over the years, we've done a lot of capital work over the years, and we continue to do a lot of capital work, and that is addressing what Councillor Fenn is talking about. We can't stop doing that. If we just maintain, we can sit at the cost of living and at the impact rate if we don't do anything. We keep our staff at current levels or whatever, but we don't do any capital. Most of our increases have been related to capital. And I don't see how we can afford not to do that. I don't like paying taxes any more than anybody else. My taxes this year will go up 4.93%. And I live on the lake shore, and I don't think that's excessive. The value of my home on the lake is going up way more than 4.3%, and I accept that. And I'm quite happy it's going up. I don't want the value of my home to go down. And when we stop developing our community, whether some people are leaving or not, when we stop developing it, they will go down. It will be like other communities in the area, where you can buy a house in Ignace for $60,000. You can't buy a house in Sioux Lookout for $60,000. And I hope my taxes, or I hope my values, I don't care about my taxes, I hope my values keep going up. I hope my taxes do go down eventually, and I believe they will. But we can't do it in one step.
All right, so we've decided that we're going to resolve this tonight, and there's different views on obviously the rate increase that was there is being defeated, so there's no point in starting higher than that. Is there anything that comes into play, CAO, that here?
Want direction.
What direction?
I came in here tonight saying I was going for 0%. I'm putting a motion on the floor right now that we total increase in taxes, tax rate, not levy, tax rate is 0.7%.
So
Councillor Lego.
you'd be looking at 4.4 total?
That's right.
Let's keep you can use those numbers if you want, but for clarity to all of us and staff,
Everybody,
the number on the floor that was defeated was 1.63, and that's a rate increase to the residential property class. So let's talk in that terminology for clarity. So
0.7%. I put a motion on the floor that we direct staff to try and prepare a budget, and whether they cut it from operations or capital or wherever, I don't really.
wherever they find the money,
Wherever they can find money, however they can cut it, and that,
however they can have a 0.7% rate increase is
That's
what
what-
you're.
I'll put that on the floor. If we defeat it, then we can go back and discuss some more.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Lego. Discussion? Councillor Timpson.
One of the things that's always bothered me is that council does not appear to have any say in things we observe to be unnecessary, or we don't get the answers for why they are necessary. And as the treasurer has said, that the questions about the operations that weren't concerning variance were not answered. And I do think that those are discussions that council should be part of. If we see waste, or we perceive waste, we should be able to talk about it and hear about it. And I've mentioned one. Why are we paying $85,000 for someone to come up from Toronto for planning still? It's been several years. You know, again, that's one question.
Councillor Southall.
I think that for tonight, to speed things along, if you have questions like that, take them to CAO or the manager and ask. Perhaps we don't have to have it in a whole council meeting, but perhaps you could find the answer there. I mean, I'm not saying that I want to try and restrict consultation of council, but I mean, some of these questions might be able to be answered through administration. I don't know. We could go on all night around here, and I think that we should probably try and move along.
further discussion on the motion that's on the floor? So it's on the floor at 0.7%. Now, the dangerous thing here is, once again, we're starting at a level, I would prefer a higher level, and I don't know what what's acceptable, what would pass. Councillor Fennell?
I'll table 1%.
There is a motion on the floor already, though.
It's at 0.0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Defeat that one, and then we'll listen
Okay.
to yours.
Councillor Bass?
Yeah, just my concern is that we just throw it to staff and say, pick it from wherever you want. I know what I would do if I was staff. I'd find it pretty easily. I'm going to find $100,000 in reserves or $100,000 in something like that that won't hurt us today. It'll hurt us tomorrow, and that's the easy way out of it. Or I can inflate my revenues quite easily if I'm more optimistic in how much money I'll make at Cedar Bay. Why wouldn't I do that? I mean, we haven't shown any faith in our staff, so why would they show faith in us? I mean, quite easily they could go back and say, oh, we made a mistake in our daycare revenues or our Cedar Bay revenues. We could easily earn $100,000 more there. And I think we're forcing them to that situation. To me, if I was a staff person, I'd be pretty darn frustrated right now. And I think we don't want to throw it on the table and say do whatever the heck you want. We need to either say cut reserves, get rid of some staff, do something, close the arena for a week out of the summer, do something like that. We need to be a little more specific than just throwing it out there and say do what the heck you want.
Councillor Simpson?
So, based on the 0.7% that's on the table, what would that, how much would that mean in cuts? How many thousands are we looking at? Do you know?
I'd have to do the calculations. I have no idea at this point.
The approximate number would be $100,000.
$100,000.
Is it possible just to take whatever that percentage is and just cut from every department, whatever?
They've done that 3 times.
No, I mean, equal.
Councillor Southall?
I disagree in some ways with Councillor Bath. I think that we have been very progressive with our contributions to reserves. I mean, a bylaw that 100,000, automatic 100,000 from hydro reserves, profit goes into reserves. We have, like we're talking 500,000, like 5% of our budget goes into reserves. I think that, I mean, a nice compromise here is we're talking roughly 100,000. Maybe reduce reserve funding by 50,000 this year, and maybe try and squeeze another 50,000 out of operations. I commend staff. You've done good. I know this is kind of blindsiding everybody.
It's our hydro this year.
And that's unfortunate. But maybe something like that. I mean, if we want to dictate how that goes,
Maybe
don't
nothing.
make it so
In here?
blunt. I mean,
Yeah.
I was kind of leaving it to staff expertise to decide that, but if Councillor Bath is uncomfortable with that, maybe we can dictate half comes out of reduction in reserve funds and half comes out of operations or capital or wherever for the year. I mean, I would like to actually see it more coming out of operations than out of capital, but I mean, let's talk about it.
So if it were at 0.7%, as the motion on the floor, and the reduction from the 1.63, if staff were given direction to find half of that in reserves and the other half in operational and/or capital cuts and/or increased revenue. From the $50,000, find it in either increased revenue, cuts in operation, or capital.
Not my preference, but yes, I would go with that, and that could be my motion if the rest of, if we can get a majority of council to support that, yeah, let's go with that.
Does the seconder, who was the seconder on this?
Through Mayor Lawrence, Councilor Lego.
I agree.
Can you repeat that? So,
Can I ask, was that clear enough, clerk? Do you want me to try one more time myself, or? You want me to try one more time? that the staff be directed to bring back a tax rate increase to the residential tax rate of 0.7%, and the reduction from the current 1.63 to be found 50% in reduction in transfers to reserves, and the other 50% to come from either cuts in operational, capital, or increased revenues, those three sources. Give the staff some flexibility there. Is that what the mover is saying?
I can live with that. It's not my first choice, but I made the motion, yes, I'll live with that, yeah.
All right, then, I'm going to ask the question. Is the motion clear to everybody?
Once more.
Sir? Once more?
Once more.
I'll ask the clerk to do it then.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, that council directs staff to come back with a 0.7 tax rate increase to the residential property class, with 50% of the reduction to achieve that coming from transfers to reserves, and the other 50% coming from cuts in operating and or capital, or through increases in revenue.
And I think we all understand it. It's clear enough that it's the reduction from the previous 1.63%. I don't know how is there anything necessary in the motion to clarify that?
It's a 0.7 overall period.
I guess it's 0.7 overall period, yeah, so, yeah.
That's very clear.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Lego.
Just to go along with Councillor Finland, there is going to be growth in Sioux, but we need to see what's coming down the pipe. It's coming, but
Christmas
we
comes
need to
too, once a year.
reassess when we start seeing it coming. Every year, we're seeing increases in the amount of the assessments in our community for residential. I got the list right here. It's up, 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 up. So as it goes up, we're taking in more money, no matter what. Next year, NPAC's going to come in, and we're going to have a new assessment, and the total assessment is going to be higher than it was this year, and we'll be collecting more money. We're averaging over 3% a year in NPAC. So
I don't like it. We got to be ready to move when the time comes, and if we can't, and then what are you going to do to the taxpayer? You're going to go to the taxpayer and say we need a 5, 6, 7% increase?
unfortunately, our hands have been binded over the years.
What's that?
To me, unfortunately, our hands have been binded over the years with the increases. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
I accept
I-
how you see it, but that's how I see it.
I see that we need to be ready to move, because we're on the edge of something that's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of work and a lot of money. Where are you going to find money if somebody wants to put, if that development comes out on by the cemetery there? We got to get water. We got to do other things to it.
It was already passed. No, it's going to be passed.
Okay, I'm not sure if this is.
Yeah.
We're good?
Yes.
So, but we still can't be without it, and we're taking from reserves, and I don't like that.
I understand you don't like that. I understand you don't like that.
So we'll call the vote, but if this passes, if it's 4-3, 5-2, 6-1, 7-0, we all support the decision that's made. That's the democratic process. We do support the decision that's made. So after the fact, council makes this decision, and we're in support of it. Those are the facts. You can disagree with, in principle, with many of the things, and try to move the town in different directions through different ways, through the democratic process. But we will support this and move forward. May I ask if this, by doing this tonight, can we ratify this tonight as well, CAO clerk? We cannot. So we'll come back for ratification one more time. Now, if we vote 4-3 for this and it passes, please, council, let's ratify it at the next meeting. All in favor? Carried. Tax ratios and related matters.
Because the bylaws have to change.
So we have to move ahead and We have to bring this back. Do we need to defer it to the, what do we do with item 7.3?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, the documents that are before you now will be changing, so I recommend that, yes, this item be deferred.
Okay, where am I?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, if possible, if we could have a motion to defer it, that would be great.
Can I have a motion to defer item 7.3? Is that satisfactory? Mover, Councillor Southall, seconded by Councillor Lego. All in favor? 7.7, Annual Summary Reports, Municipal Drinking Water System. The Council receives the 2018 Annual Report as per Schedule 22, Ontario Regulation 170-03, Drinking Water Systems for the Hudson Drinking Water System and the Sioux-Lookout Urban Drinking Water System on March 20th, 2018. The annual reports prepared by Northern Waterworks are presented to Mayor Doug Lawrence and Council members and CO Michelle LaRose. Mover to receive the report. Councillor Bath, seconded by Councillor Lego. Start the discussion with Councillor Fenelon and then Councillor Bath. Councillor Fenelon?
Sorry, on
You asked for this to be lifted.
for the water?
Yes.
Yes, just go, I haven't seen actually never read the draft yet. Just one comment is that that I was going to ask today when we had our earlier meeting, is the mechanical operation of the switchgear in the Hudson Water Treatment Plant, is that all been fixed up to signal when there's a problem back to the operator?
Yeah, that's all done.
Yeah. Does that get tested off and on or not?
We test it monthly, and then if there's times during the month when the power goes off and it starts, then it's also tested then, but we actually go there and test it. So we run the plant under generator power for approximately an hour to two hours while the operator's in Hudson for the day.
Yeah.
Once a month. So we have a planned maintenance activities, preventative maintenance schedule, and operation of the generators is part of that.
Okay, well,
It's all running very well, very nicely to the generators.
okay. That's the only thing I had out of that.
Thank you. Councillor Bath.
I didn't really have anything serious to say. I was just going to say this is I think the first report since I've been on council I've seen where we've had no negative results at all through it, and I'm quite pleased with that. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, even if you had a few negative results, that's quite common. I mean, but this is remarkable to have nothing. Can I just ask a question? I understand there's going to be changing regulations in terms of lead, allowable lead in the water. Is that crossing your desk yet, or?
Not yet, no. Hudson is on a corrosion control plan, so lead has been an issue in Hudson in the past. And we've come up with a strategy to address that issue by raising the pH and the alkalinity of the water to make the water less corrosive. The results of the corrosion control plan implementation have been quite dramatic. We've seen a very remarkable reduction in lead sample from residential plumbing. And we've recently adopted a similar policy in Sioux-Lookout of raising the alkalinity and pH of the water, again, to help reduce lead corrosion in residential plumbing, but also in general, just corrosion in general, to address other concerns like red water complaints. And we're hoping for similar results in Sioux-Lookout as well. So reduction in the amount of lead that's coming as a result of our lead sampling, the amount of lead that's detected. We believe that has been one of our major successes, not only in Sioux-Lookout, but also in other communities where we've implemented similar corrosion control plans.
Thank you. Further questions, Councillor Timpson?
Just a comment for Jason. I managed to read it today, and I understood it much more than other times. I remember last time I said, could we have a Coles Note version of this? And you said, this is the Coles Note. So I thought, wow. But anyway, it might be helpful to have an executive summary on each one at some point. I found at the end, it seemed to summarize it fairly well. But, anyway, just a suggestion for people like me that don't know the hot water from the cold water tap. Thank you. I appreciated this morning and your report. Thank you.
All right, if there's no other discussion, all in favor? Carried. Item 7.8, Sioux Lookout Water Treatment Plant Wastewater Recovery Delco Filtration Unit. The Council receives the Public Works Manager's report, number RP 2019-028, for information purposes, and further, the Council directs staff to obtain more information on costing on option to be determined, as outlined in the report, and report back to Council. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Fanlon, seconded by Councillor Lego. Discussion, and perhaps what I'll ask is for the report, Public Works Manager, you're ready to answer questions, or perhaps you could present the options in nutshell format here. Thank you.
Through Mayor Lawrence, a little bit of an introduction to the report. I realized it was quite detailed and somewhat technical, but I just wanted to make council aware that this project came before council in 2014, and to the best of my knowledge, council was not aware that it hasn't functioned as it should for quite some time. That was the main intent of the report. It wasn't trying to overwhelm you with details and technical aspects of it, but having been in a council meeting in 2016, I believe, when the engineer showed up with presenting an award for it, I didn't want council to be on opening up their tap and seeing that beautiful clear water coming out and saying, hey, we got an award for this, and it's not functioning. But going through the options, this was in consultation with NWI, and one reason why this report is brought to you at this point forward is because NWI was already here in town for the standard of care training, so they're here to answer any other questions or elaborate on any other of the options. But in summary, with discussions with NWI, we brainstormed for some ideas as to what we thought could be done with the unit. In discussion again today with NWI, one of the things that we are all in conclusion of is that we don't think that the plant, this Delco unit, will ever work as designed in such that it can filter this water and send it to the clear well. We don't believe that that will ever happen. We think it perhaps maybe was a misconception that it could ever happen, but when you take water that's potentially already considered dirty and then you concentrate that pathogens and organics and then send it to a filtration unit and expect that to come out with a lot of removal value that's deemed safe for human consumption, we believe that that's not achievable for this unit, and that would be one direction where we would say in the decision base as to how to move forward that just be eliminated from the process altogether. So in other words, the plant may have a purpose to reduce the amount of waste going in the sewer and reduce loading on the wastewater treatment plant, but the options that we think should be presented would not consider that water ever be sent to the clear well and mixed in with the distribution system. So option one is to take the plant, to take the source water to the secondary filtration unit, change it from wastewater just to standard source water that the rest of the plant receives, and then it would just become a redundant or backup unit in the plant to filter water as per the main unit if there was ever a circumstance where increase the water demand was required for a certain period of time, such as increased fire flows or excessive time for fire flows, or for example, a membrane of the existing plant needed maintenance or had catastrophic failure for whatever reason, then there could be a purpose to have this as backup or redundancy. Not necessarily what it was intended for, nor is it necessarily required with the capacity that the plant has right now. Option two was to introduce some pre-filtration to the wastewater prior to the secondary filtration unit receiving it. It was just brought forward that perhaps there could be some kind of clarifier or cartridge filter that would remove some of the contaminant in the source wastewater to the plant, and then thereby reduce the amount of fouling and have the unit function perhaps as it could without fouling and being able to function. Option three was was an investigation with the manufacturer that perhaps there's a different type of filter that could be inserted in it. Given the fact that we know that it doesn't need to filter water, that would be sent straight to the distribution system. If it's available, you could have a filter with a more coarse pore, filter some of the contaminants out of that water and redirect it back to the head of the plant. It would still reduce the amount of water going down the sewer to the being received at the wastewater treatment. Option number 4 is to stick it out and try to work with it as it is. But however, NWI has brought forward that they believe, based on how it's operated in the past, that would essentially require an additional operator at the plant just to maintain and monitor it and make sure it functions. And option number 5, which we discussed this morning, is perhaps maybe the second option, the second best option for it, is to just dismiss it as saying it was a good idea, but perhaps it's not going to work, and try to sell it.
So, as always, when you present options, Andrew, I'm going to ask you which do you least like and what do you most like?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, if I could, I'd like to defer that question to NWI. They're the ones that have gone through the trials and tribulations, and I compiled this report after discussions with them, just being privy to the project and how it works, but the fine details and the functionality of it and how they believe it best fits in with this system that's there now, I believe would best be answered by them.
Okay.
Thank you.
You know, what I'd like to do is I'd also like to defer the question to an engineer to study the options.
Right.
And come back with some recommendations on what the costs of each of the options presented are and what the pros and the cons are. Having said that, I think if we abandoned the idea that this facility should or could ever filter water and direct it to the treated water clear well, and if the filters can be retrofitted with a filter with a coarser pore size, and that the closed loop system that creates filtering water back to the head of the plant, you know, if there is still adequate pathogen removal, that the closed loop system doesn't continually increase the amount of pathogens in the source water. You know, I think that would possibly be the preferred option that I would choose. Is that if that was studied further and that filter manufacturer said yes, there's a filter that exists that can be put in place of the existing filters, and that when the log removal credits of those filters show to be adequate to not to function in this closed loop system, I think that would be my option. That would be my option because it would still achieve one of the two main goals that the system was originally designed to do, which is to reduce flows at the wastewater treatment plant, so that we defer an upgrade, the necessity of an upgrade at that facility to sometime distant into the future.
All right, so if I said an option, that sounded, I think option 4, was that the one that?
3.
Or 3 rather. 3. At the same time, you're asking us, I think, to give you direction to explore all reasonable options and come back with costing on them?
Yes, and so that option also requires additional sampling and testing. So what the MOECC or MECP would require us to do is probably to sample the reject water from the membrane process tanks to determine what the concentration of pathogens in the processed water is. And then an engineer would look at the log removal credits that a coarser filter would achieve. That would tell them what the output of the Delco filtration unit would have in terms of pathogens. And the MOE would look at that and say, is that an acceptable amount to send back into the source water? So unfortunately, that testing, the US EPA recommends that testing occur over a period of 12 to 24 months. So if this was the direction that council wanted to take, you know, there would be some time before any answers would be had.
So, CIO, what direction are we? It sounds like there's options in front of us, but now we're not going to provide direction on option. Councillor Southall.
Any just ballpark, won't hold me to a figure of what that would actually cost?
I couldn't even throw it out there. Sorry.
The unit itself right now needs work to get it running again. You know, like it's fouled up. We've sent the filters away to get them cleaned out. Two of the filters, they were right plug solid. When they came back, now they need to be repaired. So we're just about to start on the repairs on it. It hasn't ran for quite some time now, but it's never ran for any length of time. You know, so there's always issues with it, either programming issues or, you know, mechanical issues. Very,
Would it have to be running to do the testing?
yes, yeah. And we have to have the filters that Jason was talking about, so those would have to be replaced at a cost.
Right.
We're not sure what the cost
So,
is.
so step one is to find out whether those filters even exist.
Right.
And then if they do exist, what are the costs of those filters?
A rough ballpark might be 5,000 a filter, there's 12 filters in there. You know, that, right?
More than that, twice that much.
That's a reasonable guess.
Councillor Beth.
Yeah, you both said all the right things, good. And Jason, I agree with you completely that we need your expertise to pick the best of these that Andrew's been able to put together for us. But I certainly agree that we need to bring in somebody outside of us to look at it and design this system properly. If you go back in the history of this, and I know Councillor Southall was certainly here for the history of it, we rejected one option right off the bat, or whether we rejected it or we were talked into rejecting it, I don't know. This is way beyond council level. And in that one, it was a pre-filter system that was going to be built ahead of the plant. And it meant a little building outside, and it was going to cost $300,000 or something like that, or maybe more. And it was rejected. And then we went to a study to determine what we could do to wound up with this thing we have now. Well, the first round with that, it was rejected because it came in over budget. So they sent out a new RFP that was condensed and cut a lot of the fluff out of it. And then we wound up getting what we got. And it never worked. You know, so there's a lot of, I certainly don't think we should be cutting corners and doing things piecemeal. We need to go to an engineer. We need somebody to design something and support that it will work. Anybody who knows Pelican Lake water knows you can't put an ultrafine filter ahead of your filter system. I have a filter system in my house, and if I do that, I'll be out there every day changing it. So unfortunately, I think, as Andrew said, they didn't really look into it very thoroughly. So I like the idea of maybe increasing the filter size, but most of all, I like the idea of getting an engineering firm in here to look at it and design the right thing.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, one way of looking at council reviewing the report and coming to a decision is perhaps we're looking for direction from council. Like, does council want staff to perhaps investigate what it would cost to carry this further, or instead of just dismissing it? I guess that would be one option.
Have to.
Of presenting the report to you at this time. Is it something that we should look into and spend a few bucks on to determine what it would cost to get it running? Or is it
All right, so I'm going to put it back to you on that very question, because that could be the question that comes to that. Do you think it's worth us investigating? Do we take option 5, or do we look at the other 4 options? And when I say, I'm not saying committing council to do all that work, but you would need to come back and tell us in rough order, what the options.
I don't think I would want to make that decision right now without having some investigation perhaps into the possibility that Jason said, don't dismiss it altogether. We already have a significant investment into this, but some kind of cap as to what we would put into it further, and it would still be a white elephant. That's what I'm afraid of, that we go and spend some more money and it comes back and says, no, it's never going to work in that intention, so it's just more money put at something that's already not functioning.
So I think what council would need to know to consider that question is, what are the advantages of spending that much money? Do we save money in terms of wastewater plant and deferring?
Would council then have any, I guess, suggestion on a cap as to what should be invested at this time?
well, we don't really know what the gain might be, so it's hard to say. If we're going to gain $1 million at the wastewater plant over 10 years, then $100,000 doesn't sound like too much, but we have no idea what the,
Consider an RFP then out to consultants in the area, asking them to give us a price to review the process and provide recommendations.
I think that would be.
Yep. I agree. That's what you have to do.
so, yeah, you'd be putting an RFP together based on these options, the current situation, and it's a bit more work for you. Now council's putting it back to you to do more work, yeah. I think it's necessary. Yeah. Council?
Yep.
So what we would be doing here then is, I think, deferring or
Staff direction.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence. There is a motion on the floor. The mover and seconder, Councillors Fenelon and Lego, would need to agree to withdraw the motion is the first step.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, so motion withdrawn.
And then the motion would then, if council so agrees, would read that council directs staff to issue an RFP to review options and provide advice and costing.
Related to this item, yep.
I was just going to say, I'll move that.
Okay, moved by Councillor Bath, seconded by Councillor Cassidy. Any further discussion? Any further questions? Staff, that's good? Yep. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Land sale. The council authorizes the passing of bylaw number 24-19, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute agreements and documents regarding the sale of the hereinafter described land by the corporation of the municipality of Sioux Lookout to the Kenora District Services Board, First Avenue. That council authorizes the passing of bylaw 25-19, being a bylaw to authorize the conveyance of certain hereinafter described land by the corporation of the municipality of Sioux Lookout to the Kenora District Services Board, and to direct the mayor and clerk to execute the transfer, First Avenue. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Fenelon, seconded by Councillor Cassidy. Discussion, Councillor Timpson.
Yeah, my apologies. I think I got this one mixed up with there's one further down the agenda. Is there not? I'm okay with this. I was mixing this up with another agenda piece.
All right.
Yeah.
Any further discussion on this? I had Councillor Timpson marked as...
I know, 712. Yeah, we passed that
On
already.
710. Any further discussion on 710?
No.
So I'll call, all in favor? Carried. The next item that was lifted was 713 on my agenda, Sports Tourism Strategy Report.
Yep.
The council authorizes the passing of bylaw number 3019, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a consulting services agreement between the municipality and Edward Hoshizaki Development Consulting for the development of the Sioux Lookout Sports Tourism Strategy. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Southall, seconded by Councillor Fenelon. Discussion, starting with Councillor Timpson.
Yeah, I guess what I noticed with this is that the bid is half of what we estimated it was going to cost, and about half of what our grant was, which leads me to the question, is this going to be enough to truly examine the feasibility, particularly of the building? And the other thing that is rumbling out in the community is people wanting a feasibility study of a pool in the event that there is a new building. 25,000 of that 84,000 is already going to Keewatin-Aski, and it didn't seem like the consultants were going to be in the community all that much. I just wondering, questioning if we're going to get the scope that we had planned on, the scope of the study that we had hoped for.
Just a number of factors on that. When we did the review, the value added was added into, is it Hoshisaki? Hoshisaki's proposal where it wasn't in the other one. So they went out and partnered with Quayton Askey for that review of all our facilities. And it's not just the recreational facilities, our parks, our playground equipment and everything, to provide some feedback with reference to their assessment of all of our facilities and what we should be doing with them. There's also an add-on to that I did not put in the report because it's only if council wishes to pursue it further, that if, depending on what the outcome of the feasibility study is on the actual rec center, they would be willing to further do draft plans on what a new facility would look like, depending on what the community needs were through the consultation process. And the difference too between those two proponents is Hajisaki's proposal was taking 24 weeks in total versus 17 weeks in the other proposal from Eco Strategy, and we felt that they were doing more work like over a longer period of time. And also there's included a public meeting as well as consultation with community groups, whereas the other one did not mention anything about a public meeting versus focus groups instead. So we felt overall that was the best proposal. So if you take the $25,000 out of it, which was the facility review with all of our facilities, they were comparable in price because one was at $47,500 and theirs would have been $59,850. Why they came in at half the price? Maybe we just assumed that the consultants would be up around $150,000. Because that's when the application was put in, I wasn't here, so I don't know what the rationale for asking for that much was. But we're well within budget, which is a good thing. We're not over budget, so we have some leeway there. And if council wants to consider doing draft plans for a new facility or what have you coming out of this report, we can also ask if we can fund that through the $150,000 as well that has been approved.
Councillor Southall.
Did we get any ballpark for draft design or
For that price, at $20,000.
20,000 additional to?
It would be on top of this, yes.
Yeah, conceptual design.
Yeah. And that would be like after the review of all of our facilities and determining what we would require, then we would get a rough facility design for an additional 20,000, and that would all be covered in our funding.
The reason why I didn't include the 20,000 at this point because we wanted to get this on the table so we could award the contract.
Right.
I'm going to be checking with our funding partners to make sure that could be added on. If it can, then I will bring it back to council and ask for council's direction to add that to the cost of the overall project.
Okay.
Because it will still be within our funding parameters. It's just that I don't know whether that would be covered, so I wanted to make sure that I did my due diligence first before I brought it back.
If we can get that all for our little contribution, then I think it's a good bang for the buck.
Yeah. Further discussion, council? So all in favor? Carried. Item 714, appointment of integrity commissioner and closed meeting investigator. So we have two motions. Am I doing these one by one, clerk?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, actually, there's three, and
Three,
yes,
sorry, yeah.
please. Yeah.
Do them individually? Okay. Motion one, appoint integrity commissioner. The council appoints Airden Bearless LLP and specifically Megan Barrett as the Municipality of Silicote's integrity commissioner for a term of 2 years commencing March 1st, 2019. And further, the council authorizes the passing of bylaw number 1919, being a bylaw to establish an accountability framework for the Municipality of Silicote. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Bath, seconded by Councillor Fannelon. Discussion. Councillor Timpson.
Do we know what the hourly rate is of this law firm?
Through Mayor Lawrence, yes. The rate is approximately $300 an hour.
Okay.
Councillor Timpson.
I spoke briefly with the clerk earlier today, but given we have such, it's such an expensive process to have these complaints, and is there any way that we can build into at least the culture of the municipality that we go the informal complaint route first? We encourage the informal complaint route before we go to the formal. Clerk had a response to that, but I know that there's been several complaints in the past that I believe should have been dealt with informally before they went to the Integrity Commissioner. And at $300 an hour, I think we have to really look at not just the practical the financial aspect of that, but just that it's a better way to solve problems rather than bringing in the investigators and so on. And I don't know whether that would go into the code of conduct or into the accountability framework, if council thought that was just strengthen that we go that route before we pull out the...
Can I ask the clerk to
through you, Mayor Lawrence. Essentially what Councillor Timpson is proposing is a two-tier system so that internally staff are going to be encouraged to use an informal process, whereas the public, members of council, and members of boards, commissions, and committees can do whatever they like. That isn't the intent of the legislation. It's required now that every municipality of Ontario have a code of conduct and that it apply the way it is outlined in the code that's been drafted. I think it's whether or not council wishes to create a two-tier system so that staff are disadvantaged in this process, that's council's decision. However, it could be challenged legally.
Councillor Timpson.
Just to respond, it wouldn't have to be two-tiered. It could be our culture that we even encourage, if it's a public, if it's a committee member, we encourage that as part of the way we do business. We encourage an informal dispute process before going to the big guns. It wouldn't have to be two-tiered. It wouldn't have to be just the municipality.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, this is entirely possible. The major concern is it may be perceived that council is trying to circumvent a legislative requirement. Essentially, if my understanding of Councillor Timpson's comments are correct, council would be saying, yeah, we have a code of conduct, but don't call us on it. Let's do an informal process instead of actually being held to task as is provided for in the Code of Conduct. I think that could be questioned legally because it's not what the intention of the legislation is. I agree with Councillor Timpson that there are many times that sometimes there are heated debates, there are heated arguments, sometimes people's feelings get hurt, and sometimes it makes sense to take a pause, have everyone step back, consider their positions, and so on. Before any decisions are made with respect to how an issue is going to be dealt with. I think that's something that most reasonable people try to do, and I think as elected officials and certainly as staff, that would be the approach that we would encourage as well. But and I think encouraging solutions and problem solving that is outside of a more formal process is a good thing. I just think that that council may wish to exercise caution in terms of how that culture is promoted.
Councillor Southwell.
Brian, if somebody filed a complaint with the Integrity Commissioner and through the investigation they were able to find out or resolve their issues, are they able to drop that complaint with the Integrity Commissioner, or does it have to proceed through the full-blown
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, you're absolutely correct. If an issue gets resolved prior to the completion of investigation, then the investigation doesn't have to continue. Similarly, the Integrity Commissioner has, if the code is adopted as is presented, the Integrity Commissioner has the option to choose not to investigate if they feel it's frivolous or vexatious, if they feel it's somebody who just has an axe to grind and is trying to make a point. When that is filed, the Integrity Commissioner does an initial review, and if he or she feels that that's the case, then they don't even have to investigate.
So you, as the person filing, would have the option to tell the person that if somehow through this process you were able to resolve this, you can drop this case?
That's correct.
I think that kind of, would that not cover what you were talking about, Joyce? I mean, I realize we're going to pay him $300 to do that, but. Anyway.
Well, I would like to see it just kind of built into how we do things here. I don't know how. I mean, if the legislation is that strict, I don't know. I just don't think much was resolved with any of the issues that went to the Integrity Commission.
Further discussion, council input? I'll call the vote then. All in favor? Carried. Motion 2, adopt new code of conduct. The council authorizes first and second readings of bylaw number 31-19, being a bylaw to adopt a municipal Sulacout policy number 14, code of conduct for members of council and local boards, and to rescind bylaw number 1612, being a bylaw to adopt municipal Sulacout policy, code of conduct for members of council and persons appointed to council boards, commissions, and committees. And further, the council members advise the manager of corporate services, municipal clerk, on or before April 3rd, 2019, of any comments, questions, concerns, or requested revisions to the proposed code of conduct. So what we have is we're doing first and second reading. The final is suggested, could be at the April meeting, or it could be subsequent to the April meeting if there are lots of questions and discussions. I think what the clerk wanted to do was put it on the table and have council start reviewing it, and we'll talk about it in the future. So having said that, may I have a mover, please? Councillor Southall, seconded by Councillor Cassidy. Discussion. Councillor Timpson.
Yeah, I also spoke with the clerk about this. Could we get a copy of the new code with you highlighting what is required under the new legislation that we don't have already in our existing code?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, I can actually let council know right now what's required in the code. Ontario Regulation 55/18 prescribes the subject matters that are to be included in the code of conduct, and they include 4 items specifically: gifts, benefits, and hospitality; respectful conduct, including conduct towards officers and employees of the municipality or the local board, as the case may be; number 3, confidential information; and number 4, use of property of the municipality or local board, as the case may be.
Would you be able to? Do you have the clauses in the policy?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, yeah, all of those topics are addressed in the policy, and I'm happy in the report that I bring forward in April just to sort of highlight what the major changes are between the two, if that would be helpful.
I was just wondering if we could have that before April 3rd so we can comment on the final.
I will absolutely do my best to pull that together for you.
Yeah, even just this in Word with, highlighted in pink or something.
Yeah, I understand what you're asking for. That I can pull that together.
That'll just be a distribution to council then? Okay, thank you. Further discussion, council?
That's exactly what I was going to ask for, was changes highlighted. All good.
So carrying this motion just is first and second reading. It doesn't approve the code of conduct. So all in favor? Carried. Motion 3, appoint closed meeting investigator. The council, in accordance with section 239(2)(1) of the Municipal Act, hereby appoints the Ontario Ombudsman as the closed meeting investigator for the Corporation of the Municipality of Sulacout, and further, the council authorizes the passing of bylaw number 20-19 to adopt Policy 1.1, Municipal Closed Meeting Investigation Policy and Procedure, and to rescind bylaw number 7615, being a bylaw to adopt a municipal closed meeting investigation policy and procedure. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Bath, seconded by Councillor Southall. Discussion. And they may not, it was lifted, there were different items on this, so this may not require. So what we're doing is using the Ontario Ombudsman rather than appointing a specific individual, which is.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Lawrence. In the past, we had our integrity commissioner serve as our closed meeting investigator as well. That has been in place since 2009. In those 8 to 9 intervening years, there haven't been any closed meeting complaints. You know, council has been paying a retainer of $500 a year for a closed meeting investigator. So the Ontario Ombudsman, by legislation, is obligated to investigate closed meeting complaints. So at no cost to the municipality, no retainer and no cost for the investigation. So it will certainly be a cost-saving measure in that respect.
So when I read in various municipal journals about the closed meeting investigations that do go on, kudos to staff for helping to direct us, and to all the councils that have been here for not getting into that kind of trouble. All in favor?
Not getting caught anyway.
Carried. 716, Northwestern Ontario Municipal Association, oh my. And they need to be done separately?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, yes.
Recommendation 1, supportive nomination. The council endorses Mayor Doug Lawrence's nomination for the office of Executive Vice President of the Northwestern Ontario Municipal Association, and further, that should Mayor Lawrence be elected to the office of Executive Vice President of NOMA, council authorizes the mayor's name to remain on Schedule A to bylaw number 92-18, being a bylaw to make appointments to various boards, commissions, and committees. And further, that this resolution of endorsement and support for Mayor Lawrence's nomination for the office of Executive Vice President of NOMA, together with his nomination documentation, be forwarded to NOMA. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Southall, seconded by Councillor Fenelon. Discussion. Councillor Timpson.
It's one of the questions that I asked with a previous councillor as well, and I ask it here, full disclosure. I do have a little bit of concern about the number of external bodies that your worship is on right now, and something like about 4. And I guess my question is, my concern is, you know, how will the work that needs to be done here be delegated to councillors that are here? Does this external involvement affect what we do here? I'm not saying I don't support. I do support being on these bodies because they do bring. I think they do well for us by putting us on the map and promoting us. But I am somewhat concerned about the time away and how that can be accommodated.
Councillor Southall.
What would be time allotment? How many meetings a year would this be? And I just clarify, the costs of this are covered by NOMA, right?
NOMA covers, so as Executive Vice President of NOMA, my costs are covered, and furthermore, with being in that position at NOMA, I am automatically on the Association of Municipalities of Ontario board, and those costs are covered. So in terms of costs, time is, I believe there would be 5 to 6 AMO meetings a year, and NOMA times its meetings with AMO, so I'll travel to Thunder Bay. There'll be a board meeting in Thunder Bay, a NOMA board meeting, and then that day or the following day travel to Toronto for 2 days for AMO board meetings. So it's, let's say 6 times a year I'd be away for 3 days. I'm also the Vice President of the Ontario Municipal Water Association, which probably is about 3 to 4 times a year away for 2 days. Typically what I'm trying to do is I try to use that. OMWA covers my expenses as well for travel. So I try to, if I can arrange a meeting with a minister or arrange a meeting with somebody else down there, take advantage of it, or double up on the travel. So FCM, I will attend FCM this year. I didn't attend last year, but the way it's going to work out is there'll be an OMWA meeting in Toronto, so OMWA will pay my way to Toronto, and we'll only have to cover the Toronto to Quebec cost. Time-wise, I would probably, I feel I have not increased what I'm doing this term over what I did last term. I'm involved with NOMA. Actually, I've decreased it because Councillor Timpson has taken on the KDMA role. I was on KDSB, the Kenora District Services Board, last year, last term, and that's in Dryden. The meetings there's monthly board meetings, and I think 5 governance committee meetings a year, and then occasionally other meetings for KDSB. NOMA position that we're looking at here tonight, which automatically takes me to AMO, and I'm on AMWA. Those are my outside boards and agencies. And I would let council and staff be the judge of whether I'm handling the positions. So I'll leave it to Councillor Timpson. I'll let council.
Do we have a deputy mayor? We appointed deputy mayor?
No, clerk or CAO. Is there a position, deputy mayor?
There is one in the budget. We have yet to discuss how it's laid out. We'll bring that back next meeting.
Okay, so we'll bring that back next meeting.
Yeah,
Councillor
just a
Bath.
comment is I certainly think that, as Councillor Southall said, the exposure is amazing for the community. And if we look at mayors in the past have spent 2 hours a day probably working for the community in town. Mayor Lawrence probably spends 60 hours a day working for the community in town. So I don't think his work is gonna be depreciated there at all. So I think that's not something to worry about.
If there's no other comments, I appreciate that, and I'll call the vote. All in favor? Carried. So the second part of this recommendation nomination, the Council of Municipality of Sioux Lookout, being a member in good standing of Northwestern Ontario Municipal Association, nominates Mayor Doug Lawrence for the office of Executive Vice President of NOMA to hold office for a term of 2 years, commencing April 25th, 2019, as defined by NOMA, and further, that the Executive Director of the Northwestern Ontario Municipal Association be notified in writing of the nomination, and that this resolution, together with Mayor Doug Lawrence's letter of consent and any required documentation, be forwarded to NOMA. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Southall, seconded by Councillor Fenlon. Discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And that completes discussion of items requiring separate discussion. And we do have a closed session coming up, but we have bylaws. So, Clerk, are there any changes to the bylaw section before we?
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, yes. The following bylaws will not be coming forward.
You can give me the numbered bullet point that would be.
Oh, sure. So the
unnumbered bullet point. You can number it for me.
Oh, okay. 1, 2. Okay. So bullet 11, respecting bylaw 2619, will not be coming forward. That's on the second page. Bullet 12, respecting bylaw 2719, will not be coming forward. And, sorry, I thought there was a third bylaw related to the budget.
In terms of the budget, I think there were just the 2.
Just the 2. Okay, we're good. So, yeah, bullets 11 and 12 will not be coming forward.
So do you require all these to be read?
It's a good practice.
Well, clerk, practice away. There you go. We'll have the clerk read the bylaws to be introduced first, second, and third times.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, Mayor Lawrence. Bylaw number 05-19, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute agreements and documents regarding the sale of the hereinafter described land by the Corporation of the Municipality of Sioux Lookout to 2674638 Ontario Inc. For properties 58 and 60 Wellington Street. Bylaw number 06-19, being a bylaw to authorize the conveyance of certain hereafter described land by the corporation of the municipality of Sioux Lookout to 2674638 Ontario Inc. and to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the transfer. These are both respecting 58 and 60 Wellington Street. Bylaw number 17-19 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 77-15, being a bylaw relating generally to the transaction of the business affairs of the Sioux Lookout Economic Development, of Sioux Lookout Economic Development through the establishment of the Municipal Services Board, named the Sioux Lookout Economic Development Commission, in accordance with the Municipal Act 2001 as amended. Bylaw number 18-19 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 75-15 being a bylaw to establish terms of reference for council-created committees. Bylaw number 19-19 being a bylaw to establish an accountability framework for the municipality of Sioux Lookout. Bylaw number 20-19 being a bylaw to adopt a municipal closed meeting investigation policy and procedures, and to rescind bylaw number 76-15 being a bylaw to adopt a municipal closed meeting investigation policy and procedures. Bylaw number 21-19 being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute agreements and documents regarding the sale of the hereinafter described land by the corporation of the municipality of Sioux Lookout to Bert Hennessy, respecting 9 Fifth Avenue. Bylaw number 22-19 being a bylaw to authorize the conveyance of certain hereafter described land by the corporation of the municipality of Sioux Lookout to Bernd Hennessy, and to direct the mayor and the clerk to execute the transfer, again respecting 9 Fifth Avenue South. Bylaw number 24-19 being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute agreements and documents regarding the sale of the hereinafter described land by the corporation of the municipality of Sioux Lookout to the Kenora District Services Board, that's First Avenue. Bylaw number 25-19 being a bylaw to authorize the conveyance of certain hereafter described land by the corporation of the municipality of Sioux Lookout to the Kenora District Services Board, and to direct the mayor and the clerk to execute the transfer, again respecting the property on First Avenue. And bylaw number 30-19 being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute a consulting services agreement between the corporation of the municipality of Sioux Lookout and 162-6143 Ontario Inc. operating as Edward Hoshizaki Development Consulting for the development of the Sioux Lookout sports tourism strategy. Yeah, those bylaws be read a first, second, and third time and passed.
Mover, Councillor Southall, seconded by Councillor Cassidy. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, clerk. And the following bylaw be introduced, read a first, second, third time?
Just first and second.
Time, excuse me. First and second. This is the code of conduct. Bylaw number 31-19 being a bylaw to adopt a municipality of Sioux Lookout policy number 1-4 code of conduct for members of council and local boards, and to rescind bylaw number 16-12 being a bylaw to adopt municipality of Sioux Lookout policy number 1-4 code of conduct for members of council and persons appointed to councils, boards, commissions, and committees. And bylaw number 31-19 be read a first and second time. Moved by Councillor Fannin, seconded by Councillor Cassidy. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. No motions to reconsider. Councillor reports.
Oh dear.
Councillor Southall.
No, I attended Northwest Health Unit, Nora, meeting, supposed to be orientation, and 3 of the 5 new members didn't show up, so that got canceled. And anyhow, we had a good meeting, economic development, we met today, heading to Kenora tomorrow for another Northwest Health Unit. That's it in a nutshell. Lots going on with Northwest Health Unit, giving a discussion, I believe, with Mayor and CAO, or CAO, okay, and building inspector regarding the town beach, and so there's I've been briefed a bit of that, and that's about it. They're I will say, they're very proactive to Silicon. They are getting more and more involved with Silicon First Nations Health Authority. Lots going on there. It's interesting. It's my second, third meeting. It's a steep learning curve, but it's good. We're very fortunate. We have Doug Squires also on as a member of the public on board, so we do have a couple from Silicon too.
Thank you. Councillor Timpson.
I attended the research review committee of the hospital, which we review proposals from academics for research in the area. I find that a very interesting committee. It met with the Environment Committee, and we have some very bright new faces on the Environment Committee, quite keen to do lots of work, right? Mm-hmm. I attended the housing, was it Friday? The meeting on housing. Yeah, that was very interesting. Truth and Reconciliation Committee, we had our first meeting on Monday, and we're going to be, I guess, just looking at how we can expand the membership. Meeting with the Poverty Reduction Strategy yesterday, and that is really moving along very well with being able to increase the capacity of teachers and service providers to deal with high-risk kids at risk for dropping out of school. And the water presentation this morning, and at noon hour there was a vigil over at St. Andrew's Church to honor the victims of the massacre in Christchurch, New Zealand. So that was my month.
Thank you. Councillor Bath.
A couple. Chamber of Commerce, last week I believe it was. It was interesting that one of the items that came up was Dorothy Broderick's cigarette butt canisters, and they're very, very positively accepted by the municipality, by the businesses, so I think we'll see something happening there. I attended PACE yesterday I guess that was. Fairly short meeting. Just to let you know, the AGM for PACE is April 23rd, and everybody will probably receive an invitation. It's in Dryden at the Best Western at 5:30. Yesterday I had the pleasure of attending Councillor Fenland's Hudson Ward meeting, the very first one. Actually, it was kind of interesting because we actually have a chance for people in Hudson to express their concerns about what's going on rather than just through the Hudson Advisory Committee. I think it was valuable. On March 12th, whatever day that was, I attended the Hydro meeting. And last Friday, the Supportive Housing Committee, I think that was here, a group that was here. That was interesting. I talked to the fellow a little bit about what they expected from people. And certainly one of the big hurdles for any of these groups coming to town is how the heck they organize the financing. They all sound good, but it was very difficult to organize the financing. And in the end of March, I went to, I guess this probably wasn't really in a council position, but I was sort of invited as council. I went to Ogra to make a presentation on the bus service that we have in town. There's 3 other communities made presentations, and when I went there, I thought we would be pretty much the black sheep of the family, and actually I think probably we were one of the better ones. What's happening here? So it's pretty interesting to see. They went all the way from Brantford with 1.1 million riders to another group in the middle that was smaller, and to us that was 10,000 riders. So it's pretty interesting. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Fenland.
Attended economic development today, which was my first meeting. I hadn't missed the first one they had there. Things are moving, and it looks like the future is going to be looking better with things that are coming down through economic development. We didn't get too much accomplished today because there was a presentation there that was lengthy, and we talked about stuff regarding housing developments and stuff like that in Sulaco. Last Friday, I attended the seminar at the train station with the housing developments again. People talking about how they are able to do developments in a larger scale, but my guess is that they're looking for partners on a scale in that department. So that's going to be moving ahead and coming up for discussions in the future, I think. And I believe I had a Hudson Advisory Committee meeting. I had my first ward committee meeting last night. Was attended by a few people in Hudson, not as many as I would thought, but and the Hub Transit was there, which was good for us. They added to fill in the hall a bit. But the discussion there was discussion with Hub Transit from the few people that were there about the need for one in Hudson. So it's just a matter of finding how we can go about making people aware of Hub Transit, and I guess we'll have to work with John and the rest of the people that are on Hub Transit to try and get it out there, and through, even if we got to go door to door with information and try and pick people's minds and stuff like that. And we had a Hudson Advisory Committee meeting. I can't remember the date, and we finalized some of the work plan that was on the thing there tonight, and talked about moving ahead for the summer. And I think that was it.
Thank you. Councillor Cassidy.
Daycare, I was scheduled to attend the daycare. We had to postpone because of no quorum. The Environment Committee, as Councillor Timpson added, we got some young faces coming out with lots of different experience, which is going to be good to see. We also had a little bit of a biomass discussion and presentation there too. So that was very insightful because it was a little more in depth than the feasibility study that was presented. So it was good. It was very good, and I know it's been touched on about in the future about maybe potentially having something for the community to ask questions about that, and it was actually very well done there. And then I heard about this housing committee after it happened. I didn't receive any notification about it. Sorry, go ahead.
That was a little bit of lack of communication. I apologize.
Okay, that's okay. Thank you. That was mine.
Thank you. Councillor Lego.
Had a committee adjustments meeting on Monday. Then Monday after that meeting, I had another meeting. I was asked to attend the first sort of gathering of the Sioux Lookout Community Help Foundation. Apparently there was money left over from the big fundraiser they had last summer for the people that had cancer. So they're looking at putting a committee together to see if they can help some other community members out. It's in its initial stages. I was planning on attending the Bear Clan meeting on Tuesday, but apparently that was canceled again. I also attended Councillor Finland's open house in Hudson the other night.
Yeah.
And actually it was a really good discussion and good to hear from people. I talked to Brian there as well, and we haven't heard from the Home for the Aged for our request for me to sit on that committee, and the Arts and Culture Committee hasn't met, or they have, and I had never received the invite.
They have not met yet. It will be coming in the very near future. It's just I don't have staff, but it's coming.
That's everything.
Thank you. I attended the PDAC conference, and the focus there really for us was the east-west road to the Ring of Fire, and making a push because it seems like the north-south is the only one on the table, and by default, the government and Noront are going there, but it really only has the support of two communities. So we've put together a coalition, and we're calling it a coalition for loose words, but it was amazing. The flies came to us like bees to honey. It was First Nations and municipalities. So we have virtually all the regional municipalities are saying yes, we support an east-west road, and many First Nations. I'll be meeting with Vicky and Michelle tomorrow just to see where we're at on that. But private sector, First Nations, and municipalities all on board. See if we can have some influence to pull it our way, which is the best way to go. What else have we done? KDSB board meetings and governance meetings in Dryden. Attended the Anhart housing presentation here last Friday, and I wasn't sure if that was an invitation to come. I just got the invitation to attend, and I attended. So if some people didn't get an invitation, we'll sort that out.
I think the invitation came through economic
AgDev, yeah. So some of the two councillors on AgDev got invited, and I was invited. So there wasn't an intention to be exclusive. I did decide not to go to the ward council meeting, the Hudson Ward Council meeting last night, because sometimes it doesn't work out if I attend these things. But I'm glad I didn't, because we would have had a quorum of council. It was already three of you there. As Councillor Timpson said, we had our first TRC meeting. That's just getting underway. Today, I met with Deputy Grand Chief Naveau from NAN. He was here with Angela Carter. You'll remember who's from NAN, sits on our TRC committee and is back again, and Henry Wall. And NAN is doing a homelessness study, and they're working with KDSB, and we're certainly hoping that new emergency shelters, they're now fully in tune with Sioux Lookout, and through KDSB are getting a lot of statistics. There's a lot of support there. So it's nice to see, and once again, I'm always surprised. The Deputy Grand Chief sat here, and honestly, he didn't know about Sioux Lookout. He really didn't, and this is NAN. So never assume. We always have to go to Toronto, go to Timmins, or go to Thunder Bay, and give people the good news about Sioux Lookout, let's say. That's that. So
I'll just say,
Councillor Shaw.
here for a minute, but Henry Wall was at our economic development meeting today, and he was just saying the new 20-unit supportive housing down at the west end of town has reduced the calls for service by over 600. So
Yeah.
it's working.
Phenomenal, right? Yep, really.
And some of the people too, I think of the 25 are in employment programs. One actually graduated and is living independently with a job. So it's having a positive impact on people's lives, and we're doing things through a system that's funded by somebody other than the municipality too, and doing the right thing. So that's terrific.
Any news on that announcement that Bob Nault made that sounded like?
No idea. I neglected to say I did go to Kenora last Monday as a KDSB board member and mayor to attend the Minister Rickford and Minister Clark were there grand opening of the new Kenora Emergency Shelter, and in the afternoon an announcement for a 30-unit supportive housing project in Kenora. And the email that we got from, I have no idea what that's about. I honestly think it's a mistake. I don't know what it's about. I am traveling to Kenora, not this Friday, but March 29th, to meet with Bob Nault. He's invited mayors to go there and discuss infrastructure projects. So consulted with the CAO and Public Works about which infrastructure projects, the ones that we all know we have, and take those there, and hopefully there's federal funding where there may not be provincial funding.
Can I ask a question? I was surprised to see in the paper that you were attending the conference, I think it was the mining conference, with some other people on the new position on the east-west road corridor. Where did it fall apart before that, prior to that?
I don't think it ever, I think there was, the farther I get into it, the more you learn, and the more you learn that it never came together. And I don't think any government, whether it would be the federal government under Stephen Harper or this one, or the same with the Liberals and these Conservatives, they don't know how to deal with the First Nations, quite frankly. And they don't. So they wait, and when finally there's 2 First Nations that got aligned and said, well, we'd like a north-south road so we can have an all-weather road. They said, okay, fine, we're consulting with First Nations, fine, let's jump on board.
Yeah.
But all the studies that have been done to date, and some of them are buried in the MNR, indicate that east-west is by far the better route, environmentally, naturally, cost-wise. There's all kinds of factors, and ultimately, in terms of the service end, it's not just the communities at the Ring of Fire end that are important. It's the communities at the other end, communities like Pickle Lake, Mishkogoming, Sulako, Dryden, Kenora, that will benefit hugely and are prepared to service the Ring of Fire, prepared to service the northern communities, already are. So when you put it all together, there's the reasons for it to be east-west, as well as being hundreds of millions of dollars cheaper, as well as being environmentally more friendly, all those other reasons. So what we decided was, okay, well, let's take one more kick at this cat before they go north-south, which is the wrong way to go, and see if we can get some attention. And the other thing, I think the First Nations are reluctant to speak up against other First Nations.
Yeah.
So when 2 came forward and said we want it, other ones, they're waiting for somebody to get behind and say, yeah, well, we want it too, and pull it in the other direction. I think that's, so where did it go wrong? I just don't think it ever went right. I don't think there was enough.
'Cause I thought the Liberal government from Ontario was supporting.
We thought, well, NORAD basically what they've said, we're agnostic. We'll go wherever the road goes. But they've told us that east-west is preferred. But if they would be if it ended up being north-south, then they'll go that way. They just want access to they want a road.
Yeah. Okay.
So does that help? Or?
Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
There's no big brain up there figuring this out, so we're hoping to influence things.
Apparently, talking to MNR, all the aggregate studies have been done for east-west.
Yes.
They're all there. I mean,
Yeah. They've been working on that for a couple of years now.
It's been working for a while on that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I spoke to a former regional manager, and he said, "Yep, there's studies that are buried under piles, but east-west is clearly best." Is what they determined.
Good. Yeah, well.
I have no idea where it'll go, but I would have kicked myself if we didn't at least make an effort to pull it our way, because it could be really important for us. And I'll make a motion to move us into closed session, and then we'll declare a break. Oh, sorry, CAO, yes.
Items. We didn't, this information was just received recently, so it wasn't enough time to do a report to council, but we feel it important to bring it up now because it's all about funding. So we received information from the province that the OSIF top-up application program has been discontinued. So our application that we have in place right now will no longer be reviewed as part of that program because it has been canceled. There is a new we learned today that there's a new $30 billion infrastructure fund that will be dispersed over 10 years, over the next 10 years between the feds and the province. That funding, the first intake, will be due in May, so we're going to be talking about it as staff to bring back some recommendations to council as to what we can apply for under that fund. It is very, very restrictive as to what you can apply. So, for example, naturally, when you do road infrastructure, you want to do your water and sewer at the same time. Well, we can't apply for it. Anything under the ground, you can't apply for, only the roads. So you can do the project together, but the water and sewer will be separate and 100% of your cost. So we have to, Andrew participated in a webinar today to get more information about it. So we'll be talking about it as staff and bringing it back a report to council in April as to what we recommend that perhaps that we can apply for funding under that first intake for that program. The mayor also received a letter today from Minister Clark, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, The province has announced a one-time investment for Ontario small and rural communities, and the funding for municipalities will be to improve upon service delivery by finding smarter, more efficient ways to spend money that helps those who need it most while respecting taxpayers' dollars. The province expects that municipalities will be taking steps to be more efficient. So examples of what we can use for are to include service delivery reviews, development of shared services agreements, IT solutions, capital investments, and other projects. So the province is saying that it's a little liberal. They said over the next couple of weeks, ministerial staff will be contacting the municipal staff to answer any questions that we have, and we also have contact information right now that we can get a hold of them to ask questions, because it was very vague, of course, the funding announcement. But Sioux Lookout will be receiving $645,200 in 2019 for this initiative, and it's a one-time funding announcement. So we'll be bringing back more information on that as we follow up on that, because that letter just came out today. The province also announced the OSIF top-up has been cancelled. That program has been cancelled, but the OSIF formula-based funding is still in place this year, so we did receive our allocation. It's official. We put it in the budget in hopes that it would be the full $224,000, and it is. Although they indicated we had previous spreadsheets from the province under the Liberal government that guaranteed that funding over a number of years, and because it's a new provincial government, they indicated that they will be reviewing it, so that we're not going to be expecting any money next year. From a staff level, we think that that's what's going to happen, is that it will cut dramatically, if not discontinued. So that's almost $250,000 that we potentially might not be getting next year for infrastructure funding. So all of these impact what we're going to be doing moving forward. So I just want to bring that to council's attention, and staff will be bringing reports forward once we learn more information or have an idea of what we think we can do with that money.
Thank you. All right, so we'll have a motion to move into closed session. We'll do that, and then we'll take a 5-minute recess. Motion to move into closed session to discuss matters of general nature as noted below. Move into closed session at 7:40 p.m. to consider subject matter relating to a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. One item, property north of Boreal Trail subdivision. 2, subject matter relating to personal matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees per Municipal Act as amended. 1 item, appointments to council boards, commissions, and committees. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Lego, seconded by Councillor Cassidy. All in favor? We're now in closed session on a 5-minute health break. Thank you. some things completely in open, so we're going to.
I missed the last meeting, so you'll have to give me a crash course on this.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, no problem.
My only instruction so far is make sure you don't take it with you to the washroom.
Sorry, what was that? No, we're back on now, right? We're on. Report out from closed session, ratification of resolutions and/or bylaws arising from closed session. Council ratifies motion.
Through you, Mayor Lawrence, in this case, we're actually not ratifying it. We're just passing the motion in open session. So it's just the motion on 5.2 from the green, from the blue sheet. I can read it if you like.
Please.
That council approves amending Schedule A to bylaw number 9218, being a bylaw to make appointments to various boards, commissions, and committees by adding Adam McCarty to the Economic Development Commission, Tricia Frempong to the Environment Committee, and Angela Carter to the Municipal Committee on Truth and Reconciliation.
We have a mover. Councillor Lego, seconded by Councillor Cassidy. All in favor? Carried. Confirmatory bylaw 23-19, confirming the proceedings of the Council of Sioux-Lookout. March 20th regular council meeting, read first, second, third time and passed. Moved by Councillor Southall, seconded by Councillor Fallon. All in favor? Carried. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Cassidy, seconded by Councillor Timpson. All in favor? Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much.